Hello, beautiful souls out there. I hope you're able to get out in nature like Starlight is. Woo! I wish I could do that, but I'm sitting down. And anyway, I love you so much, and I hope you're able to get out in nature like Starlight is. And thank you to all of you. And please, a tip from Starlight is let love guide you, not fear. I know there's a lot going on out there, and so, relax a little bit. I know it's hard to relax. I know things are, I hear it out in public. I go to places, I hear people talk, a lot of people are saying a lot of stuff out in public. So you gotta let love guide you, not fear. And thank you for all of you who have been here, loving and supporting Starlight. And thank you for all of you who have been here from the beginning, and maybe you joined me in the middle, or even recently. And I just have a new subscriber I met at the library. What a beautiful soul she is. So it's great meeting you. I hope you're checking this video out. So I am so grateful because with the universe I meet a lot of beautiful people out in the world, and especially like-minded people. I've been meeting some teenagers, young. Well, actually, this lady here looks really young, and she wasn't as young as I was thinking. So she looks really beautiful for her age. So anyway, it's great meeting all of you. Some of you I met somewhere along the line in person, and a little reminder. Some of you might have thought Starlight was crazy telling you that God, there's no accident that I'm out here doing what I'm doing because of the end times. And here, and that was before all this stuff started flying, around, all this stuff on the news. So Starlight wasn't making shit up. And now you're probably wondering, wow, okay, how did she know? So, because I got the God, I got the universe, and I got, God guides me and helps me. The universe helps me. And besides, I am connected with the universe. We're all have the universe in us. And I also have a mentor. But those things that I said had nothing to do with what anybody told me to say. I was just telling you exactly the truth of why I'm where I am. So anyway, for those of you that are shocked now for meeting me and telling you that God has me out here to help people because a lot of shit is going to be coming, and here we are. So that didn't happen by accident, and there's no coincidence in this universe. So besides that is thank you for all of you being here, loving and supporting Starlight. And also, if anyone would like to send any love donations, you can through my Cash App, and I will have the information here. Ching, there it is. And before I start this video, now today the title is We All Been Tricked. I'll tell you what, the more we go down Alice in the Wonderland, Alice going down that rabbit hole, a lot of you could be going through a lot of things that I mentioned in other videos a long time ago, like, are you noticing things, with the people that, you thought you knew, your family members, and you're like, what, why are they treating me like this? Why is this going on? Why is that, why are these, people that are close to you, it could be friends, and a long time ago, I made videos that was like, because I was going through some shit, and I was like, what the heck is going on with my family? It was so mind-blowing. I just was like, you gotta be, like, when you think you know someone, and then you find out, like, they're just being used, to test you, to see really who you are as far as a human being, and what side, who are you serving? What God do you serve? And so we've been lied to, and the more I go down the rabbit hole, the more gets revealed. And that's because I do the inner work. And a lot of things, I have to say this, Some of you might throw stones at me because there's people just like myself has been programmed. We all been programmed. You know, your parents have been programmed to believe what they believe, and it's been passed down through generation after generations. You know, families that are, you know, hating other people because of the color of their skin or what country they came from. You know, and those are all programs that we've been believed to, you know, where you could have family members that, you know, didn't teach you as a child to respect people out in public, you know, instead to treat people a certain way. There's a lot of kids that were brought up by their parents or even at church. Yeah, would you believe that? People that, you know, go to church where they actually have gotten people that go to a church. It's a, like, it could be, I came from one, a cult church. It was all white people, you know. They didn't want Asians in there. They didn't want people of color in there. If you were, you know, you're not going to sit around and feel comfortable in that church. I'll tell you what, you're not going to sit comfortable. You know, one night, you're not going to last the second night. You know, I'm talking about preaching, you know, that scare the shit out of you. And that is where Starlight came from, preaching that, you know, you didn't feel very comfortable in your panties or underwear, you know, when the pastor is preaching and his face is turning red and spit is flying all over. Yeah, that was on. So, you know, there's pastors and preachers out there that have wasn't even what they were supposed to be doing, getting people of color against people of white. You know, and there's no race. It's all an illusion. We've been lied to and separated, you know, for a reason. You know, we need each other. Together, we are stronger. You know, and my whole time, I started reading my Bible. Actually, I started going to church in 2000. Actually, 1995 is when I got saved. Like a year after that, I had to get out of an abusive relationship. You know, I felt like my life was threatened, and my kids were there with me, and I didn't have a car. So it took some time for Starlight to. I was scared shitless. You know, I'm like, I need to get out of this. I don't feel safe anymore. And there's times that God will. The universe will do these things because we're with the wrong person. We're with the wrong person. We were never meant to be with them. They were there to teach us a lesson, though. So then Starlight, it took me a year to actually get out of that situation. And I moved in an emergency, an apartment, which was not safe either. So then, you know, God just kept on moving me to another. Hang on, Starlight's just... I'm out here because alligators are out here. I hear big water puddle. Of course, that alligator, I don't think he can climb up here to get Starlight. So yeah, I started finally going to church, reading my Bible. First thing when I got in there, you know, I wanted to, you know, they do this purposely. I wanted to, you know, after sitting there for so long, Starlight's not a sitter, you know. I was told, like, you know, if you go to church, then you need to get involved, you know, you need to, you know, do your part. Just like a family is, you know, have you ever had or know a family that, you know, you got a family and you got the ones that are the doers and the ones that just sit around? Well, Starlight was not the one that just sat around. I was a doer, you know. I was one of those people that, you know, felt convicted to, you know, sit around and do nothing. And there's a lot of families, they bring their kids up that way, is they, you know, they lounge around the house and they watch video games or they watch movies all the time and then complain later on how come they turn out the way they did later on when they're adults. So that's just a freebie. So we've been lied to even when it comes to, I'm like, what was that? So this is a shocker for me, is I've always questioned when I was learning the Bible, because when I started going to church, like I was saying, is that I wanted to get involved. You know, the pastor would preach and say stuff, And then, they were talking about, hey, we need people, or we need money. We need people, or we need money to, volunteer. You're not going to get paid, but we need people to, they would invite you to go and get involved and do something. Hey, you know what? You want to do nursery? You can, sign up for nursery. You want to go knock on doors? We need people for that. So anyway, Starlight wanted to get involved in something, and they're like, oh, you can't do that, huh? I can't do that? No, you got to actually go through discipleship first. Like, I wanted to get baptized. Oh, you can't get baptized until you become a member of the church. So they use all these are all little tricks, that they have out there to program you. And because they don't, first thing when you get in there, they don't want to lose you. They want to control you and program you first thing. Like, if you want to get involved. If you don't want to get involved, you're not going to sit comfortable in the church, unless you can have it go in one ear and out the other. So you're not going to feel very comfortable in the church when they always bring up, hey, we need people for this. And that could be all a trick just to get you, to program you, to say, hey, we got to program you, And so, but throughout the time of learning the Bible, I was always questioning different things that didn't really make any sense. And I was a sponge, though. I was a sponge, and this is what happens to many people. They're just a sponge. They absorb everything, that they were taught in the church, whoever taught you, And so there's a lot of people, like Starlight has been guilty of just being a sponge, absorbing it all, just believing, okay, they said this, so, they're telling me the truth. And as time has gone by in my life, I question many things about the Bible, and even today. So we've been lied to, we've been tricked, and you got to really ask yourself, really, what is the truth, And I used to think, even after I was learning so much about the Bible, not my son so much, but my stepson, long time ago, is that he was doing Bible quizzes. They were really programming the kids to memorize their Bible verses, and that's another program, to get them, so then that's all they know is that those verses. And so all these kids were being programmed to memorize verses. So how, what if it was all a joke? What if it wasn't even all real? I'm serious. Have you ever, people that really got serious about their Bible, and like I did, I got so serious. I studied and studied and studied my Bible. I read and read and read my Bible when I used to go to church, in both churches. I even studied it more when I got in a cult church, because, man, how am I going to get the blank out of this situation I got my ass into? So, but there's definitely many times that I read stuff in my Bible that it didn't make any sense, and how they made God look in the Bible, and so my life is totally different now, going in a spirituality, learning about spirituality is like, that's not God, what I'm learning now. How God's been gentle with me. God has been patient with me. But when I was going to church, that was not the story. Everything was being forced upon me. I was made to do stuff against my own will, my own free will. So, because there's a lot going on in the world, and it started so many wars out in the world, is the Bible. And why so many Bibles? Well, I told somebody this a long time ago, but you know what? It's sad. They were programmed to believe what, families, moms and dads, they've been programmed, and then when they get kids, they want to teach them, and they're not even aware that they're programming their kids because they think that's the right thing to do. So, and then, when you really, there's people that don't even study the Word of God. They don't even question anything. They're just a sponge. They just absorbed it all, and just like, and they got verses memorized and everything, So you got to be careful. There's a lot going on in the world, and it caused a lot of wars out with different countries and people, that believed in different things, and all these different Bibles. And if you really think about it, even in the beginning, how Satan was going to be running this world. And how do you think, this is what was messing me up about the Bible, is that, don't you think that Satan would create such a thing to control the people Satan could have done anything that Satan wanted to do. Why not use a Bible, and create that, and to use that to control the people and to divide people from countries, have so many different Bibles. Why do you think the world is so screwed up the way it is? It's not God. God has not been like that with Starlight. I am growing and becoming my greatest version in my life right now. I am happier than I've ever been, even when I went to church. God rewards me when I obey and I listen. I'm being tested all the time on what I do and how I spend my day, what I say, how I treat people. But it's not the way the churches were teaching me, that, God's... Sorry, I do hear voices because there's a trail out here. God's not sitting there with a sledgehammer, like when you goof up, bam, there you go, like a cartoon, actually like a video game, where they got a little sledgehammer and you got to hit things, to get points or whatever. No, that is not what this has been like for me, and I pray to God, I pray to Jesus, I pray to Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, and I met people that are real, like angels out here in this reality. There's not just angels out here, there's other kind of fallen angels out here. But people will blame God and accuse God for all these things that God had nothing to do with it, So the war out there, the stuff that's going on, is because there's a time that, it's kind of weird. A lot of stuff that has been said in the Bible, it was to stop you from freeing yourself. Meditations, for instance. A lot of people have been programmed that you can't do yoga, you can't meditate. That's wicked, that's of the devil, but they don't they don't explain why, they don't, do they even know what meditation does? I'm amazed with myself in my life right now with meditations and what it does for me. There's a lot of things with meditations people don't know, that there's a lot of health issues that you have, and more than likely it has to be with, I'm not a doctor, but the doctors know this, but most doctors are corrupt. Most doctors are corrupt. It's all a money-making system. Most of you know this. So they know that meditations are very, very beneficial for your health and your mind and your well-being. But they don't want you to get that kind of help. See, people, they want everything to be instant. So people will go and rather take a medication with side effects than actually take time and doctors don't want you to get healed. They don't want you to go get real help. They want you to be a mess, so you go back to them and make more money. They make more money off of you because they're not going to fix the problem by giving you medications. That's why you got to be wise on when you're talking to your doctor. If they're the first thing that they always tell you is, we got a medication for this. My gynecologist was doing this to me. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was having some kind of female problem, of course. And the first thing, hey, yeah, we got a medication for that. It's like, wait a minute, no, I'm sorry, but isn't there something else that we can do instead of the medication? Oh yeah, well, hello. There could be doctors that were great in the beginning, but then they start learning that they can make money off your ass by giving you medications. So I'll tell you what right now is, don't believe everything you fucking hear. I did swear on the news. A lot of it is, it's all being, we're all being tested. There's gonna be a lot of shit that's gonna be out there, and you really we've been lied to the whole time. We've been tricked. So right now you don't want to get tricked. Right now you gotta be wise. Right now you gotta pay attention to what's going on, but not to get scared, and paranoia will destroy you if you let it get to you. A lot of people, just like the COVID, so be careful. A lot of that shit that they were saying about the COVID was a lie. It wasn't real. They pressured people in to go get something. A lot of people that I've talked to, they freaking are upset because they got tricked into taking that COVID injection. Hey, I had to, I was going to lose my job. They didn't have faith. They thought they had to do it. They were forced to take that, because they thought that's the only thing they had to do. So don't fall for the shit that's going on out there. Question everything, even the Bible. You got to figure it out. Do you believe everything in the Bible? Did you, if you're just a person that goes to church and, you just sit there, you punch in your clock, you just show up, make it look good because everybody's wearing a mask, Starlight's not wearing a mask. This is how a lot of people is. God's not happy about religion. I am free from that stuff. I'm spiritual, not religious, so you gotta, I'll tell you what, if you're just going there to be, hey, I signed up, I joined, I punched the clock in at the church to impress all the people there, to, make it look good for my family. You could have kids or even family members that aren't going to church, and they will go to church because they're like, hey, look at me, you're not going to church, but I am. And they're pressured by loved ones to go in the church, and they don't even want to be in there. They don't even want to go to church. They got their loved ones, their wives, their husbands that are pressuring them to go to church. Oh, and then if they don't go to church, well, then you're not you don't know God, and you're lost, and you're not a Christian. And so a lot of people, they do it for the wrong reasons. They go to, it's a show, it's a joke. Many people, they go in there, they don't even read the Bible when they go home. They barely even pray when they go home. Oh, thank you for this food, amen. That's it. It's about all they do for praying. It's a show. It's there's times our ego or our flesh, depending on how you want to word it, depending on what kind of background, but religious people would say flesh, that ego will actually tell you to do things for the wrong reason. Yeah, go to church, because then, you know what? You'll make other people look bad because that they don't go to church, but you are. So now you're going to look good because you're going, and you got to go because your wife might not think that you really love God. You got to go. Now you got to go. Why? Because you got a little child. Now you got to go because now you're like, oh, this is how I got to bring them up. So it's all these programs thinking this is what you got to do. And you got to question everything. You got to figure out if I just had a man tell me this not too long ago, and I've been asking God. When you ask God, you want to really know the truth about anything? Ask. Keep on asking the question until you get the answer. And when you get the answer, it will blow your mind, because you'll be like, I got the answer. It wasn't what I was, but I got the answer. I have been asking about this. I've been reading my Bible every day, and as I'm reading it, my intuition says something's wrong. Every freaking day that I read my Bible, something's not right. Every time I pick up my Bible and I'm like, something doesn't feel right anymore, because I'm waking up to the bullshit that we've been so lied to and so deceived And it's not the people, it's the entities out there that are controlling the people. So be really cautious of the stuff that you believe out on the news, because a lot of it is just like COVID. It's to scare you and control you. So you got to really be wise in this time right now, and not to let fear control you, because that's exactly what they want, just like COVID, to get you afraid that you're going to die if you don't take this, you're going to, your loved ones are, so your loved ones are not going to make it. So a lot of loved ones and their families, they pressured their loved ones to take in the injection because they feared that they would die. Hey, grandma, grandpa, you got to get it. We don't want you to die. We want you to be here. So you got to go get that injection, or you're not going to make it. But where's faith in God then? Where's the faith in God that God's going to protect you through that? So really question everything right now. I love you so much. Don't, just because you hear something on the news, it doesn't mean that it's the truth. We are in the end times. This is a spiritual warfare in your head, the dark again and the light, So we have to be sharp. And, be careful what your family tells you, because you're going to have family members that, just like COVID time, remember with COVID? Now, I didn't have that problem with my family. Nobody wanted to take the injection in my family. So, but when I had my own cleaning business, holy shit, I had people left and right, acting like, hey, if you don't take that injection, Starlight, we're not going to have you in our house to clean. We don't want you in our house. I got a mask on. What the fuck? Like, what's up, man? Just because I get the injection doesn't mean that I can't spread it to you. The injection wasn't going to stop me from spreading it to them. So really, really use your head and really think of what is going on and what they're saying and what they're not saying. You got to really be cautious of the stuff that you hear on the news, and even your family member. Like I said, a lot of family members or even your friends could get you to be afraid. And that's what you got to be sharp. You got to learn from the COVID time is, there's people that they're always afraid of something. They're afraid to, go out for a hike. They're afraid to learn how to drive a car. They're afraid to do this and they're afraid to do that. Those are the ones you better watch your ass out, the ones that are afraid about everything. You gotta let love guide you, not fear. I love you so much. This is Starlight. Namaste. This is Starlight. Love, light, and peace. Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, plus give me a thumbs up, and you can leave me a message down below, beep, beep, beep. Plus, you could share my videos with your family or friends, and don't forget the notification bell, and check out my playlist. And you can also find me on Instagram at 1995 Starlight, or on Facebook, and that is Kathy with a K, Dingman, Starlight. Thank you for watching. This is Starlight. Namaste. This is Starlight. Love, light, and peace.